deep in the Strait of Hormuz, a secret island existed off the map. In 30 minutes, it no longer did.
30 minutes. That's all it would take to erase a secret island in the Strait of Hormuz. No warning, no declaration, and no second chances. Just 200 Navy SEALs moving in under total darkness, carried by MH-60M Blackhawks skimming the waterline at 150 knots. Rotors buried beneath the noise of the ocean wind, closing on a target that officially did not exist. They weren't supposed to be there, and in 30 minutes, neither would the island. The target wasn't on any public map. No coordinates were shared outside the inner circle. No press briefings, no leaks. Just a small, rocky landmass sitting in the middle of one of the most critical waterways on the planet. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which nearly a fifth of the world's oil moves every single day. Whoever controls that strait doesn't just control a shipping lane. They control leverage. They control pressure. They control the pulse of the global economy itself. And someone had built something extraordinary out there. What intelligence had pieced together over months of surveillance, signal intercepts, and human assets was alarming. The island wasn't just a military outpost. It was a command hub, a fully operational nerve center buried beneath reinforced structures, hardened against aerial surveillance and engineered to remain invisible. From inside that facility, Iranian operators had been running a sophisticated regional operation around the clock. Radar arrays tracked every vessel moving through the strait. Signal intercept systems pulled communications from commercial shipping, foreign naval assets, and allied intelligence platforms. Coordination networks spread outward from that single point, directing patrol boats, feeding targeting data, and synchronizing pressure across the entire maritime zone. It was the brain of the operation. Remove the brain, and everything goes dark. The mission was simple to describe and brutal to carry out. Get in, pull the intelligence, and destroy everything. A cruise missile could have put the island underwater in minutes. But a missile doesn't extract hard drives. It doesn't recover encryption keys, communication logs, or the operational architecture analysts had spent years trying to map. The data inside that facility was worth more than its destruction. So they sent men, 200 of them, and they had no time to fail. Under a moonless sky, 4 MH-60M Blackhawks launched. Engines throttled low, formation tight, flying at wave-top altitude, rotors churning just meters above the surface. Threading beneath every coastal radar threshold the Iranians had positioned along the strait. Inside each aircraft, total silence.
Every operator had spent weeks rehearsing this mission on a full-scale replica of the target. Every corridor, every door, every defensive position burned into memory. They didn't need to talk. They needed to move. But the Blackhawks weren't alone. High above the strait, invisible to everything except the mission commanders watching the air picture from a command aircraft circling 40 miles out, 2 EA-18G Growlers from the USS Theodore Roosevelt had already been running jamming operations. Their ALQ-99 pods flooded every Iranian radar and communication frequency in the area with a wall of precision interference so complete that every screen from Bandar Abbas to Qeshm Island was showing noise. Iranian operators weren't seeing a threat. They were rebooting their equipment and calling for maintenance. They had no idea what was already moving inside the jamming curtain. 4 FA-18F Super Hornets, loaded with AGM-88 HARM missiles and Mark 83 bombs, were already in their attack corridors, running fast and low off the deck of the Roosevelt, assigned to one task: shatter the island's defenses before a single SEAL boot touched the ground.
Then, the Super Hornets rolled in. 2 direct hits on the coastal gun emplacements. 4 seconds, 2 positions gone. The second pair came through immediately after, targeting the communications tower on the island's high ground and the secondary radar array. The tower took a direct hit and came apart from the base. The radar array simply ceased to exist. Then, the AH-6 Little Birds arrived. Small, fast, almost impossibly maneuverable. 3 of them came in from the north at 30 feet of altitude. Chin-mounted miniguns spun up, sweeping through the remaining defensive positions in a single coordinated pass. Machine gun nests, mortar positions, a vehicle-mounted heavy weapon that had survived the FA-18 strike and was beginning to rotate toward the inbound Blackhawks. The miniguns destroyed it in under 2 seconds. 2 FA-18Cs flying top cover held combat air patrol above it all, weapons free, watching for any Iranian aircraft that might scramble from the mainland. They saw nothing. The Growlers had made sure of that. No scramble order had gotten through. No alarm had reached any airbase that could respond in time. The entire air package had done its job in under 4 minutes. Then came boots on the ground. The Blackhawks flared hard over the landing zones, and the SEALs were off the ramps before the skids settled. Already moving, already in contact. Gunfire. Tracers cutting across the sky from the eastern ridge. A machine gun crew sheltered in a hardened fighting hole the FA-18s couldn't target without risking the underground facility, had survived everything and come back online. Rounds ripped across the landing zone. One Blackhawk, still climbing out, took hits along the tail section. The airframe shuddered. The pilot held it. It didn't go down. The island was already fighting back. One SEAL element fixed the position. Another flanked from the south. 90 seconds later, the machine gun nest was gone. Under direct fire, moving uphill. 90 seconds. That's what 200 Navy SEALs look like when the clock is already running. While the surface fight raged, the breaching team reached the underground entrance, concealed in a rock face on the eastern side, invisible from any overhead angle unless you already knew exactly where to look. The door was reinforced steel, multi-layered, built to survive anything short of a direct bunker buster strike. They had purpose-built charges configured for this exact door. They had trained on it for weeks. The charge detonated. 11 seconds. Door gone. Inside, darkness. The smell of electronics. Cooling systems running. Emergency lighting strips casting the corridors in dim red. Enough to see, not enough to hesitate. The close-quarters battle inside those corridors was something else entirely. No sightlines, no standoff, no air support. Just rooms, doorways, and men making decisions in fractions of seconds. Peel, stack, breach, clear, move. The defenders inside fought hard. Every one of them lost. Behind the assault element, the intelligence team worked without stopping. Drives pulled, bags packed, communication logs stripped from active terminals. Gunfire 10 meters ahead. They kept working. Explosion 2 rooms over. They kept working. Every second of collection was a second that mattered. Then, the picture above ground changed fast. Iranian fast boats were inbound from the nearest coastal base. Multiple contacts pushing hard across the water. A quick reaction force launched from the mainland. The 30-minute window was collapsing in real time. One word came through the command net: accelerate. Demolition charges were set against every system in the facility. Server banks, communications nodes, power infrastructure. The team moved like the building was already burning, because in every sense that mattered, it was. Collection complete. Last charges armed. Moving for the surface. Getting out was where the mission almost came apart. The remaining defenders had reorganized. They knew the Blackhawks were coming back.
They concentrated everything on the landing zones. Every weapon still operational. Every fighter still standing. Pouring fire into the open ground between the assault facility and the extraction points. The extraction security force had been holding those LZs for 14 minutes under sustained contact. Ammunition running low, 2 operators wounded, still on the line, still holding. And when the underground teams emerged onto the surface and began crossing open ground, the fire surged immediately. Gunfire from 3 directions, RPGs finding range. The AH-6 Little Birds swept in low ahead of the extraction routes. Miniguns working, cutting off every position that tried to lock on to the landing zones. The pilots flew with surgical precision, anticipating threats before they fully developed, suppressing fire that hadn't even fully opened yet. 2 passes. 3. The fire never stopped, but it never found its target. Then the MH-60M Blackhawks came back in under the heaviest fire of the entire operation. Pilots held altitude over active gun positions, absorbed hits, held steady long enough to load operators, then pulled clear. Rolling lifts, teams loading and departing while others kept fighting. The perimeter shrank team by team until the last man broke contact and ran for the final aircraft. Last SEAL aboard. Rotors up. 47 seconds later, the island answered. The demolition charges detonated in sequence. Server banks first. Communications relay nodes. Power systems. The underground facility didn't just go dark. It collapsed inward. Corridors folding. Equipment fused into wreckage that no recovery team could ever reconstruct. Surface structures came apart seconds after. The radar arrays, the antenna clusters, the signal towers that had been quietly pulling intelligence for years. All of it, gone inside 90 seconds. Flames climbed 200 feet into the night sky. And while the island still burned, the B-2 arrived. It had been airborne for 11 hours, launched from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri before the SEALs had even finished their final brief, flying a transoceanic route, refueled twice in the air by KC-135 Stratotankers, invisible to every radar system it crossed. The B-2 Spirit doesn't appear on screens. Its radar cross-section is roughly the size of a large bird. It had been holding overhead for 20 minutes before the SEALs even inserted. Patient, waiting for what came next. Now it had clearance. 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, 30,000 pounds each, designed to punch through 60 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating, were released in a single pass. The weapons fell silently, guidance fins making micro-corrections through the final seconds of their descent. 2 impacts, 2 detonations, not on the surface, below it. The island buckled upward in 2 places as the underground chambers collapsed completely. Fires that had been climbing from the demolition charges were snuffed out by the shockwaves, then reignited as ruptured fuel lines fed new flames into the ruins. Whatever the SEALs had left standing, the B-2 made sure it was gone. The Spirit turned and disappeared back into the dark, already 200 miles away and climbing before the dust had settled over the strait. No statement issued, no mission logged in any accessible document. It had never officially been there at all. Then, silence spread across the Strait of Hormuz.
The patrol boats that had been receiving targeting data from the island no longer had targeting data. The signal intercept operators feeding intelligence up the chain had nothing left to feed. The radar picture that had been centrally processed and distributed from that facility was blank. Not degraded, not reduced, gone. Every node in the network that had depended on the island was suddenly isolated, operating without coordination, without direction, without the hub that had just been removed from the surface of the Earth. And what flew out of the strait in the holds of those Blackhawks may have been worth more than all of the destruction combined. Encryption keys, communication logs, operational architecture, names, contacts, methods, patterns that analysts had spent years trying to piece together from fragments. All of it, physically, in American hands, within minutes. What the SEALs pulled from those servers in under 9 minutes could fuel intelligence operations for years, could reach into networks the island had spent years building. It could give analysts the ability not just to watch Iranian maritime operations, but to predict them, disrupt them, quietly dismantle them from the inside. That part never makes it into any story about the raid. The raid lasted 30 minutes. What came out of it will last much longer. 30 minutes of SEALs, one pass of a ghost. The island was gone. The network was dark. The strait was quiet. And somewhere above the Persian Gulf, already climbing toward the edge of radar coverage, already becoming invisible again, the spirit turned for home.